Most people do not set out looking for someone who will hurt them, and yet a lot of people can describe the same pattern with a kind of quiet disbelief. You meet someone and the pull is immediate. The chemistry feels sharp and electric, and the attention feels intoxicating. Even when you can see the damage, some part of you still wants to stay close to the person causing it. That experience can feel confusing and humiliating, but it is rarely random. Attraction has a logic, even when it leads somewhere unsafe. When someone feels drawn to toxic people, the first thing to understand is that the attraction is usually not to toxicity itself. The attraction is to a familiar, emotional environment. Your nervous system does not only seek what is good for you, it seeks what it recognizes. It seeks what it knows how to survive. And if your early experiences taught you that closeness comes with tension, uncertainty, or emotional labor, then a stable and respectful person can feel strangely flat at first, while an unpredictable person can feel strangely alive. Toxic attraction often begins with a specific sensation. Not love, not safety, but activation. A feeling of being switched on, as if something important is happening. Sometimes people call it butterflies. Sometimes they call it a spark. But in a lot of cases, that sensation is your threat system waking up. It is not proof of destiny. It is your body preparing for inconsistency. When you have a history of having to earn connection, your system learns to treat uncertainty as meaningful, because uncertainty used to decide whether you were okay. One of the strongest psychological mechanisms behind this is intermittent reinforcement. It means that the reward does not arrive consistently. Sometimes you get warmth, attention, affection, or tenderness. Then without warning, it vanishes. The same person who felt close yesterday feels cold today. The same person who promised commitment disappears for days. Your brain responds to this pattern with obsession, because your brain is wired to chase unpredictable rewards. If love arrived every time you reached for it, you would relax. If love arrives only sometimes, you become vigilant. You monitor, analyze, and you try to decode tone, timing, facial expressions, or the silence. You become a student of the other person. You start negotiating with your own needs. You accept less, then call it patience. You swallow discomfort, then call it understanding. And when the person finally gives you a good moment again, it lands with extra intensity. It feels like relief. It feels like a breakthrough, as if you were chosen. But often what you are feeling is the end of a stress response. The nervous system releases tension, and the release can feel like love. This is why toxic dynamics can feel so powerful early on. The highs are not just highs, they are contrasts. And you are not only enjoying connection, you are escaping the pain of disconnection. Your emotional world starts revolving around the next shift, text, or the next apology. And because the good moments do exist, it becomes easy to tell yourself a story that this person is actually good, just complicated. That they are wounded. That they are misunderstood. That if you love them correctly, they will finally stabilize. Another layer is familiarity, which is more subtle. People often repeat what they grew up with, not because they want to suffer, but because it feels like home. If you learned early that love means being on edge, then being on edge can feel like intimacy. If you learned that closeness comes with criticism, then criticism can feel like involvement. If you learn that affection is followed by withdrawal, then withdrawal can feel normal. The brain does not always separate emotional familiarity from emotional safety. It can mistake recognition for truth. This is also where attachment patterns come in. Attachment is not a label to judge yourself with. It is a map of how your system approaches closeness. If you tend toward anxious attachment, distance can feel like a problem you must solve. When someone is inconsistent, you may feel compelled to work harder, to prove yourself, to stay available, or to keep the bond alive. The other person becomes the center of your emotional regulation. Their mood decides your mood. Their attention decides your self-worth. You do not just want them, you want the feeling of being secure again. If you tend toward avoidant attachment, the pull can look different. You might be attracted to intensity that does not require deep vulnerability. Someone dramatic, exciting, or emotionally chaotic can offer adrenaline without true closeness. There is contact, but not real intimacy. There is a sense of connection, but it stays just out of reach. And that distance can feel safer than being fully seen. Often the most magnetic combination is anxious and avoidant, because each person triggers the other. The anxious person senses distance and leans in. The avoidant person senses pressure and pulls away. Then when the anxious person finally backs off, the avoidant person returns, not out of stability, but out of relief. The relationship becomes a loop. Pursuit, withdrawal, reunion, tension, repeat. This loop creates the illusion of depth because it creates intensity, but intensity is not the same as intimacy. Low self-worth can make this loop even stronger. If somewhere inside you believe love must be earned, toxic relationships feel like a test you have to pass. You might not consciously think you deserve less, but you may have learned to equate struggle with value. When a healthy person offers consistent care, it can feel undeserved or suspicious. But when a toxic person offers conditional care, it feels like something you can work for. There is a strange pride in enduring, in being the one who stays or who understands. And under that pride is often a painful belief that being chosen by someone difficult would finally prove you are enough. Then there is trauma bonding, which many people misunderstand. A trauma bond is not simply bonding after trauma. It is a bond formed through cycles of harm and repair. The nervous system becomes linked to the person through stress. When someone hurts you, your body goes into alarm. When they come back and soften, your body calms down. The person becomes associated with both threat and relief. Over time, the bond becomes chemical. Leaving feels like withdrawal because your system is used to the cycle. But you are not only missing them, you are missing the regulation that came after the chaos, even though it was their chaos that created the need for regulation in the first place. This is why people can leave a toxic relationship and still feel pulled back. The mind remembers the harm, but the body remembers the relief. The body remembers the apology, the tenderness, and the promises. Those moments can keep you attached far longer than logic can justify. And because the bond is driven by survival circuitry, you can feel shame about it. You can think you should be over it. But trauma bonding is not solved by willpower alone. It is solved by understanding the pattern and building a new sense of safety that does not depend on the person who destabilizes you. Another reason people get drawn into toxic dynamics is the rescuer identity. Some people learn that their value comes from being useful. They became the calm one, the fixer, or the emotional manager. They learn to read a room, anticipate mood shifts, and keep the peace. When they meet someone unstable, something in them wakes up. There is a purpose, there is a role, and they feel needed. And being needed can feel like being loved. But rescuing is not intimacy. It is a job. And when you are busy trying to heal someone, you often stop asking whether they are safe to be with. It also helps to name the moments where toxic attraction tends to show itself. It is often the place where your boundaries weaken. You find yourself excusing behaviour you would never tolerate from a friend. You feel grateful for basic decency because it arrives after disrespect. You feel a rush when they finally respond. You feel anxious when they do not. You start monitoring yourself, editing your words, and walking on eggshells. Your body speaks too, even when your mind tries to override it. Tightness in the chest, stomach heaviness, restless sleep, or a sense of dread before seeing them, followed by a sense of relief when they are kind again. When the body keeps reporting danger, it is worth listening to it. The hardest part is that toxic people are not toxic in every moment. If they were, you would leave quickly. The hook is the mix. The charm, the closeness that feels rare, the vulnerability that makes you empathize. Or the moments where they seem to understand you better than anyone. Those moments can be real, but a few real moments do not erase a harmful pattern. A relationship is not defined by its best nights. It is defined by what keeps repeating. So what breaks the pattern? Not forcing yourself to stop feeling attracted, but by changing what attraction means inside your nervous system. The first step is naming the pattern without insulting yourself. Something like, I'm drawn to inconsistency. I interpret unpredictability as chemistry. I feel bonded when I have to work for closeness. When you name it clearly, you stop romanticizing it. You stop treating it as a mystery. And once it is a pattern, it becomes something you can change. The second step is learning to track your body after contact. Not during the high, but after. After a phone call, date, or a text exchange. Ask one simple question. Do I feel more grounded or more activated? Grounded feels like clarity, calm, and steadiness. Activated feels like obsession, confusion, urgency, and internal noise. A lot of people mistake activation for connection because it feels intense. But intensity can be a sign that your system is bracing. The third step is slowing down early bonding. Toxic dynamics often accelerate. They create urgency by pushing intimacy and commitment. But the speed is not romance. The speed is a strategy, sometimes conscious, sometimes not. Slowing down gives you time to observe patterns. Consistency over weeks matters more than a powerful moment. Accountability matters more than apology, and respect matters more than chemistry. The fourth step is boundaries that you actually enforce. If someone lies, disappears, insults you, pressures you, or violates your limits, the boundary is the consequence you follow through on. Many people stay in toxic relationships because they have boundaries that exist only in their thoughts. Enforcing boundaries feels harsh at first if you were trained to keep people close at any cost. But boundaries are not punishment. They are protection. The fifth step is rebuilding self-worth in a way that is not dependent on being chosen by someone difficult. This is where real change happens. When you start believing that love should not require self-abandonment, the pull toward chaos begins to weaken. Not instantly, but steadily. You begin to crave peace. You begin to notice how exhausting the old pattern was. You begin to feel the difference between someone who wants you and someone who wants access to you. And it is important to expect a strange phase during this change. Healthy people might feel boring at first. Not because they are boring, but because your system is used to spikes. If your emotional baseline has been anxiety, calm will feel unfamiliar. The goal is not to chase a spark. The goal is to build a fire that does not burn you. Your attraction was shaped, learned, and reinforced. It was connected to survival strategies that once made sense. And anything that was learned can be unlearned, not through self-blame, but through new experiences of safety and consistency. The opposite of toxic attraction is not numbness. It is peace with depth. It is desire that does not require anxiety. It is closeness that does not cost you your dignity. And when that starts to feel familiar, the people who once felt irresistible start to look different. They're not exciting or mysterious anymore. They're just unstable. And you stop wanting to build a home in a storm.